How do you end a huge and a hugely beloved franchise? You make Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. Marvel, Fast and Furious, all you other mass production movie franchises, take notes. Godzilla vs. Destoroyah is pretty well known as the film that ended the Heisei series, and well, killed off Godzilla. That alone instantly makes it one of the most important films of the franchise, but thankfully, it's also one of the greatest. There's insanely high stakes, a fantastic new enemy kaiju, and it actually manages to be pretty damn emotional. So to make a great finale, we've got to look at a few things. How do you mix things up so that the film feels original and creative enough to stand out, but also build to a natural conclusion? How do you deliver fan service without it overshadowing all the new stuff? How do you celebrate Godzilla without annoying the audience every time we cut away from him? It's a tough balancing act, but Godzilla vs. Destoroyah pulls all of it off. In terms of mixing things up, this film has one of the most interesting scenarios of the entire franchise. In a stroke of genius, they made Godzilla a giant ticking time bomb. He's absorbed too much radiation, and his body is having a nuclear meltdown. The human characters speculate that when he gets too hot, boom, there goes the world, chain reaction explosion style. So there we go, G-Force is scrambling for a way to not make Godzilla blow up the entire world. Suddenly, I'm interested in whatever all these bro-science spewing weirdos have to say. Here the G-Man is a whole new level of threat, and you notice this straight away when we see him attacking Hong Kong in the opening. His skin looks like lava is trying to burst out from inside, and his presence is enough to turn the water around him straight into steam. Not only is this a great setup for the film, but it also just looks cool as hell. To stand against the new version of Big G, we need a new threat. And here Toho casually drops one of the most menacing badass kaiju ever put to screen. Enter Destoroyah, the only monster that I'd say manages to be more threatening than good old Ghidorah. So Destoroyah is developed through what I'd call a number of escalating horror scenes. First, he's shown causing a fish to decompose at an aquarium. Just want to point out that this is a really well made, atmospheric film. Next, there's a scene where a group of soldiers are being hunted by Destoroyah's new crab-like form. It's been said before, but this scene does feel like it's been lifted straight out of Aliens. But that's a good thing. And yeah, here's some more evidence to that claim. This is one of the more obvious moments of horror in the Godzilla franchise, and part of me feels like Godzilla's at its best when it's doing horror. Next, it becomes kaiju-sized, and it fights Godzilla Jr., who's also in this film. And this is a good little warm-up for the main event. And then we finally see Destoroyah's perfect form, and that introduction is a sight to behold. As is seen burning Godzilla rolling up to go head to head with the devil. But before we get to that, what is Destoroyah? Well, we learn through this scientist guy that it's actually a colony of mutated crustaceans that combine to create this giant monster. That's why the kaiju can take on multiple forms, and this kind of becomes a blueprint for what Shin Godzilla would be like 20 plus years later. Even the sound effect for Shin's atomic breath is taken straight from Destoroyah. Destoroyah is also really cool as he's an embodiment of the oxygen destroyer weapon that killed the original Godzilla. Bang, we've come full circle. Now let's talk about the main part of the film, and the reason it's so important. The death of Godzilla. After his battle, he finally reaches meltdown and starts to disintegrate. The imagery is a little horrible, but really quite beautiful, and it's accompanied by the final track of Akira Ifukube's composing career. He said that it felt like he was composing the music for his own funeral, which I think is important to bring up because this moment is a goodbye for so many things. It's a goodbye to Godzilla, not only from the characters, like the returning Miki Sagusa, who also says her goodbyes here, but also from the creators. It's a goodbye from Ifukube, who composed so many iconic pieces of music for the franchise. A goodbye from Kenpachiro Satsuma, our Heisei Godzilla, and a goodbye from Tomoyuki Tanaka, as he finally handed the character off to America. But with death comes rebirth, and rising from the ashes comes a new generation for Godzilla.